It's Tom and Jack for Cultaholic News. Look, Jack, I'm a floating head.
I thought you were going to say you were on the beach. But,
yeah. I am also on the beach, and I'm also a floating head on the beach.
Tom, I'm devastated, right? Because
why are you devastated, mate? Because you're not on the beach with me.
Partly, but also just because before that you had the Golden Gate Bridge, and you'd done a trial run with that one. And
this one?
Yeah. And I was going to say it's Tom Cam Cisco, which wasn't brilliant, but you know.
Ayo! I love it.
I know.
You're a genius.
How do I even... It's crazy.
Here is your wrestling news.
Oh, it's gone.
Major returns and AEW debuts on Impact Wrestling last night. WWE has confirmed fan attendance at WrestleMania 37. And we have an update on an absent AEW star. Find out who in a little bit. Blimey! Tuesday night was busy on the old wrestling front, wasn't it, Jack?
All the worlds are colliding, everything's becoming meshed, and we have seen the continuation, the next chapter in the war between AEW and Impact Wrestling, Tom.
What a night that was. So we saw... let's try and break it down. This is all in the same segment, pretty much, what we're going to talk about here. Which was, first of all, a return to Impact Wrestling for Cowboy James Storm.
Yeah.
Lovely to see Storm again.
He's been cropping up infrequently, shall we say, in recent times, but certainly not enough for this not to be considered a return. I think it was definitely a return, so good to see him, an Impact boy through and through.
Very much so. And and as we were sort of coming to terms with James Storm making a seemingly more full-time return than he has done, teaming up with Chris Sabin to form what I'm assuming is called the Beer City Machine Guns.
The Beer City Money Machines.
Beer City
Money
Money
Machine. Money Beer.
LCD sound system. That's what they're called. And then as we're just sort of getting to terms with that, who's this walking down the aisle making... a return to Impact and an AEW debut.
It's not only Matt Hardy, but also Private Party as well, coming to shake things up, Tom. And then they had a match against each other, so it was Private Party taking on Sabin and the returning James Storm, with Matt Hardy overseeing proceedings. And it was an interesting finish as well, very interesting finish, because Private Party picked up the win. They're obviously babyfaces on Dynamite, but they may have been kind of influenced by Matt Hardy in sort of heelish ways because they relied on interference, but from a very unlikely source, Tom. Do you want to reveal who interfered on their behalf?
It was Jerry Lynn.
Jerry Lynn interfered on their behalf. He was ringside with Tony Khan, he's just living the dream as Tony. He's just having the best time. He really, really is. And then the show ended with a big brawl also involving the Good Brothers. But yeah, it seems like this is 1 point to not to Impact. I've messed it up. 1 point to AEW in the war.
To Impact Dynamite, as we will now call it. This was a really good episode. I think Matt Striker did refer to it as sort of the midweek war.
Right, fair enough.
Which is quite nice work by Matt Striker. But yeah, there was lots going on in this episode of Impact, and they did warn us this was going to be one that we wouldn't want to miss. And now I guess that we know why. Lots of worlds colliding here. Matt Hardy cuts a great promo referencing how he was a former Impact Tag Team Champion, a belt that he lost because of, quote, some teleportation angle they did. So we had a little bit of pow shooting on the go as well in this one. It was a wild time, Jack.
It was. Also, recently on Renee Young, well, the former Renee Young, Renee Paquette, how do you pronounce it? Paquette, sorry. On Renee's recent Oral Sessions podcast, she was talking to Tony Khan himself, who shed a bit of light on how this whole relationship between the two promotions started. And he basically said it was all Kenny Omega's idea. Khan said he asked me about it, and I love good ideas. This was something Kenny brought up that I thought was a great idea. I give 100% of the credit to Kenny. He also brought up his recent appearances, which both you and I were big fans of, alongside Tony Schiavone on these paid ads, where Tony would cut savage heel promos on Impact Wrestling. And apparently that idea was come up with when he was backstage at the Impact taping supporting Kenny Omega. He says, while I was there, Tony Schiavone, who only lives a couple of hours away, I said, come hang out with me, and I came up with the idea, why don't we buy ads on Impact? It's great, it promotes our show, and also keeps the storyline with them going too.
I love how Tony turned up at somebody else's show going, "Hey guys, great to be here. Hey, we should run angles during your show."
Yeah, we should run angles where we laugh
guess.
at you and make you seem stupid.
So all eyes were on Impact Wrestling last night. This April, all eyes on Tampa. WrestleMania 37 on the horizon. And Stephanie McMahon confirmed something that we'd heard some rumblings about over the past couple of weeks. What was that, Jack?
That was that WWE are aiming to have some fans in attendance at WrestleMania 37. This was when Stephanie was speaking to the TMZ Sports show, and basically she discussed the potential logistics of this. Obviously, not everything's so clear at the moment. Things can change very rapidly for circumstances beyond anyone's control. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see. But this is what she said as of now. She said, "I'm thrilled and excited because hopefully this will be the first opportunity for us to have our fans back in attendance. That's the current plan. Of course, ticket information is not yet available because we're still trying to figure out all the machinations." Is that machinations or machinations?
Machinations, I believe.
I've only ever seen that written down. It's like when someone says epitome and you're like, it's epitome. Come on.
No.
Now, Stephanie also mentioned a little bit how WWE are trying to keep an eye on the Super Bowl, which sounds a bit odd, but it's to gauge how the NFL basically handle having fans in attendance in a limited number and seeing how they do it, how well it works, and if they can possibly take inspiration from some ideas. Wouldn't be the first time they'd done that. The Thunderdome idea was kind of borrowed or lifted from the NBA, for example, who were using screens as well in their bubble in Orlando. So, it's going to be very interesting to see what it looks like, how they're going to keep safety procedures in effect as well. But if fans can safely come back, then that should be a huge boost to everybody.
Yeah, I think so. We'll see how that pans out. There's still all sorts could go on between now and April. Think about this, right? This time last year, we were getting ready for Raymond James WrestleMania. This time last year, and it was literally in like, it felt like we had like one day we were saying, oh, it looks like it might come out the Performance Center, and then a couple of days later, oh well, we're leaving the office. Bye. That's that then. So anything, to quote Biffy Clyro, anything can happen in the next half hour. Looking from WrestleMania to the breeding ground of where all this stuff begins, to NXT. Mercedes Martinez has spoken to PW Insider, and as we know, Mercedes Martinez was set to be a part of Retribution, initially was, then disappeared. What happened, Jack? Did she tell us?
She did. She actually was very honest to PW Insider about Retribution. She said, "I was given an opportunity and I took the opportunity not knowing what the outcome would be. You've got to make the best with anything you can. But I think when that opportunity came, it just wasn't for me." Now, often we hear wrestlers say the first half of what Mercedes Martinez said there, which is, you've got to make the best with what you're given. You've got to play the hand you're dealt. But then she elaborated further and said, it just wasn't good enough. It just wasn't. She didn't say it wasn't good enough. She said it wasn't for her, which is totally fair enough. She went on to say, when you hit the pinnacle of your career, as I did, hitting 20 years, she's been around for a long time, you want to make the most of your career and make it part of a legacy. And I just think being part of that group, and it wasn't a hidden fact that it was me, I don't hide that fact, but I don't mention it only because it's just a small part of what the bigger picture is. It's kind of one of those things where this is where Mercedes is, but maybe it doesn't fit the mold and doesn't fit her career. It was no hard feelings. I just think we both had two different plans. I wanted one thing to go one way and they had a different outlook. But I wish them success, to all those who are part of the group, and I wish them the best. And you know what? Fair play to Mercedes Martinez, I reckon. I think that's, probably a wise move.
It's a real strength of character thing to be able to go, we want to offer you this, for them to say, we want to offer you this opportunity in this new faction that we're starting on Monday Night Raw, on our flagship TV show, and for her to still go, that's lovely, but it's not quite what I'm thinking. So it's a real strength of character, because I don't know many would have turned that sort of opportunity down.
No,
especially, and bet on themselves in that way.
Especially someone like Mercedes Martinez, who's been a big star in North American indie women's wrestling, but as you mentioned, has never really been on Raw or SmackDown, and really that would have been like the biggest platform she'd ever wrestled on. But I agree, I think it shows tremendous strength to turn that down and know what's best for her career. And as she mentioned, her legacy as well.
good to see her back on NXT in the last week or so. And it's also optimistic going into 2021 that we may see a return on AEW finally. Who are we hoping to see again soon, Jack?
That would be former AEW Women's Champion Riho, because it was reported by various sites a few weeks ago now that Riho had left Stardom, where she was wrestling. And then on the latest Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer has said that because she lives in Japan, Riho might not be returning to AEW anytime soon, because obviously travel restrictions make it a hassle. But I think the fact that she's left Stardom may suggest that there might be something in the works. How quite that would work, Meltzer goes on to elaborate and explain, saying they can bring her in if they want. The thing with her is she lives in Japan, and then she'd have to quarantine to go back, and that's a tough deal. They do bring Pac back and forth, obviously, from England. Apparently that's kind of a hassle. He has to quarantine for 2 weeks every time he goes back and forth. And he says, I think they've got ideas for Pac to be in major matches, so that makes it worth doing. But with Riho, it's not like there's going to be great major matches for her, so it's kind of like, why put her through this? Well, I would suggest if she is going to be doing that and coming back, then maybe they do have big plans for Riho, and that is why they're putting her through all of the hassle to get over to the States.
The AEW women's division has been something that's been talked about pretty much since the inception of AEW. The general consensus being that there could be more done with it. Kenny Omega talked about this in an interview with TV Insider, didn't he, Jack?
Yeah, he was saying that he thinks the division are taking baby steps. He said, we have hungry performers who are passionate about getting a chance to do their best. Passion speaks to me, Kenny Omega, more than the performance of a maneuver. And right now, our women are really chomping at the bit to get these TV spots. They're all training hard. Our roster keeps getting better and no one has lost their passion. They're still striving for that big goal, which is for the women's division to get more time. I'll have the biggest smile on my face the day we get it. I know we will. And I believe Kenny Omega there because he's got a big hand in the women's division and the booking of it. But at the same time, that means that he also, he has to shoulder some of the blame for its shortcomings so far, I think, as well.
Yeah, you watch AEW every single week. What's your vibe on the women's division currently?
I think they were starting to get somewhere near the right track. And then COVID hits, obviously. And they had a bad run of luck with injuries as well. Like Chris Statlander was just picking up steam. And then everything got kind of set back. Riho, they couldn't bring in anymore. And I think that maybe with time they would have got there. But there was still quite a long way to go as well. Because sometimes it got to a stage where there'd just be a match on a show. And you'd think, well, this is them saying, oh, here's the women's match. There you go, get in and out. And it really wasn't very good. They started to remedy that a bit with the likes of Thunder Rosa, Serena Deeb having great little not even little matches, great longer matches on Dynamite, crucially. But that made the NWA women's division seem stronger than the AEW women's division. So there's, as Omega said, there's baby steps to be taken. But I think that it is an achievable goal. It just might be a little way down the line yet.
What about Abaddon? Do we not just put the belt on Abaddon and have done with it?
I would love for them to put the belt on Abaddon. I think that was a fantastic match she had with Hikaru Shida. She's really unique. I just hope that unlike, The Fiend and Alexa Bliss over on Raw, they don't turn it into the Abaddon show, because that would give the women's division more to do, but it would also make everything spooky and strange.
I am fine for more spooky and more strange. Mainly if it's Abaddon.
Fair enough.
Just saying. More news later on. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.